how do you regain momentum after you were forced to abandon a project, specifically one that you had enthusiasm for and were making progress on, but now have had massive associations with, due to a very toxic person from your past who is still partially in the frame? The only way to stop their bullying and manipulation was to stop the project, particularly if the conditions for a project have worsened in the meantime. But project remains a necessary step forwards. The hardest part about change and the hardest part about healing in this sense, starting this project, how many of you agree it's hard to heal in an environment that made you ill? It's hard to elevate you in the environment that made you small. And what you're experiencing right now is exactly this. It's not to say you can't change in this environment, because world-class achievers, right, in spite of all of their circumstances, they still elevated themselves. It's not to say it's impossible. We're here to say it's very difficult. So therefore, your ultimate goal is, of course, ensure your environment always is helping you, setting you up to win. Make sure your environment is helping you towards the elevation. This, however, is easier said than done, especially if the toxic people is involving family members we're seeing perhaps every day. But it's not to say it's impossible. How many of you agree? Even if you live in a very hot country, it's hard to perhaps avoid getting tanned, but it's not impossible, right? You can limit the exposure as much as possible. And you can ensure any other exposure you're having is something that's helping you, right? So it's about us firstly realizing, right now, there was a woman, I'm going to call her a nice name, Fiona, for now. Fiona said to me, in spite of her best attempts to heal, she would jump on classes like this and straight afterwards she'll be triggered and fall back to old patterns. How many can relate to that? One moment she's feeling elevated, I can take on the world. Next moment she's going back to old patterns. And I said to her, the reason why is very simple. Because right now, there are things, okay, Fiona, right now that's contributing what's called to your self-loss. That's making you forget who you really are. And those self-loss things are even people. Those self-loss things are sometimes tasks, projects, triggers. I mean, know what I'm talking about. And I said to her, you got to become so aware of how many of those self-loss things do you have? What makes you forget? What makes you fall asleep in your life? And most importantly, what helps you to remind you of who you really are? Because how many of you can think of certain things in your life as a practice, as a ritual, or even tuning into LMA Q&As that reminds you more of what you're here to do, who you are, and what you should double down on? Yes or no, by the way? So I said to her, you got to begin to measure how much of this percentage versus this do you have? And when she actually measured it, she noticed she had about 95% of things in her life, in her environment, that's contributing to a self-loss. Many of those things include the apps on her phone, messages she's receiving from toxic people she hasn't quite blocked yet. So 5%. One of them include the LMA course, other rituals in her life. So no wonder Fiona in her real life falls asleep every single time. How many of you are getting this? You're going to be asking you right now, how much of your environment is really helping you to thrive or just merely survive?